Hi everybody, and thank you for accessing this webinar, which is the first one for this year. I'm Sophie Davis and I'm going to whiz through a few slides which will hopefully give you a bit of an update on what's happening at the moment in the world of children's mental health, both locally and nationally. So these webinars are designed to go alongside the half-termly newsletters that we send out. So I'm hoping that you've received the one for this second half of the autumn term already. They're pre-recorded sessions which are just to sort of make it easier for champions to access them really. So rather than having to come to a network meeting every term, which is how we've run things previously, we're doing this pre-recorded session every half term instead, just so that it's a bit easier for champions to access them. And the purpose of them really is to provide information and updates for champions about what's happening locally and nationally, but also to give you a little bit of short sort of focused input on a particular topic or a resource that we've come across that we think might be helpful to your practice. So the webinars are for all champions who are signed up to Core and who are signed up to Plus as well. So by now, I'm hoping that you've had a copy of the newsletter for this half term. We send it out electronically, so if you haven't had it, then please just let us know by emailing the Mental Health Champions inbox and we can try that again for you. So in terms of local news for this half term, there's a bit of an update on the what the Core offer is for this year for anyone who's new to things and is just wondering what's happened to the network meetings that used to happen last year and so on. There's just a bit of an update so that people are really clear on what the Core offer looks like. There is also a bit of an update on the Mental Health Champions Plus sessions because we've had to change the title of the session that was planned for the end of the year. So the second half of the summer term, the title of that session will change and we'll let you know what that will be as soon as we can. We wanted to raise awareness of these Healthy Minds training packages, which are they're pre-recorded, really nice packages for schools to access. Each one of them gives a really nice sort of overview of a different intervention or approach that you could use in your school. So a lot of them are designed to be applied at a whole school level, but some of them are more kind of small group work that you might want to get up and running in your school. So at the moment we've got packages on zones of regulation, emotion coaching, mindfulness, CBT approaches, resilience, and then more recently we added some packages on social stories and comic strip conversations, and also the ideal self and ideal school. So there's a lot of packages there already, but for this year we're also going to add 3 more, which will be available quite soon. So in the new year there will be packages on Lego therapy and starving the anxiety gremlin, which are both approaches that you normally use in small groups in schools, sometimes on a one-to-one basis, but both of those packages will give you enough information to sort of understand what that intervention is about and how you would get that up and running in your school. And then towards the end of the year, we're also going to add another package, probably on the Superflex social skills materials. So look out for those next term and also towards the end of the year. And then Kay asked us just to flag up the Senior Mental Health Leads DFE course that she's running. It's really well attended and the feedback has been really positive on the courses that have run before, but she just wanted to sort of keep the awareness there that it's there, and for schools that sign up there is a grant to help you release staff to attend that. And the idea of that package is that it gives you a really nice opportunity to kind of reflect on what you have in place across your whole school in terms of mental health and emotional well-being, but the course is accredited by the DFE as well. So that's a really helpful course to look into if you're interested in developing your whole school offer. And then again, just in terms of local news, the council has given some awards of money to different charities and organisations in Bradford who run projects supporting mainly adults, but some of them are more family focused as well. But there's a whole range, there's about 23 different projects that have been awarded some money to help them boost their offers. So there's a link on the newsletter and that will take you to the part of the council website that explains all of those different projects and what's available. So it's just nice to have a quick flick through and just know what projects around for families who you might be working with, or particular parents who need something a little bit more. So have a look into that as well if you've got a few minutes. In terms of national news then, you might have seen some talk on social media about the Fund the Hubs campaign, which was encouraging the government to put more money into these early support mental health hubs which exist across the country. There's about 60 of them already, but the government has now announced that they will give £5 million of extra funding to these hubs, so that about 10 of the hubs can enhance the offer that they already provide. So those hubs are all around the country, and they offer mental health treatment to young people without the need for a referral from a doctor, which is really good news. So look out for more announcements around which hubs are going to benefit from that. There is also Children's Mental Health Week in February next year, so we're going to come back to that in the second half of this webinar, because I'll just go through the resources that are available online to support you if you want to do that in school. And also in the last newsletter we mentioned the SIBS website, which is they're the kind of national organisation that exist to support siblings of children who have high levels of need. So that became the featured organisation in the last newsletter, and it also came up when we did the Mental Health Champions Plus training last half term as well. So there's loads of information on the SIBS website if you've not had a look at that before. The chances are there will be quite a number of children in your school who this would apply to, so they are siblings of children with a very high level of need. And it was really interesting in the Mental Health Champions Plus session. There were lots of discussions around the kind of work that schools are already doing to support those children who are sometimes a bit overlooked in school. People don't necessarily realise that they might have needs of their own because of everything else that's going on with the family. So we looked at the kind of work that schools can do to support those children. So SIBS asked us just to flag up their resources that are on their website. So they have this intervention called SIBS Talk, which is something that you can pay to have proper training on from SIBS. So whoever went on that training would be shown all of the resources and how to run this intervention called SIBS Talk in school, which is group work and one-to-one work with siblings who need that extra support. But SIBS have also produced this a free package called SIBS Talk Lite, which is kind of, it takes elements of the SIBS Talk package, but it's things that you can download yourself and then use on a one-to-one basis or in small groups. So there are, it's kind of based around 4 different stories. So you download the story pack, and it's got the story itself, and it's got questions and prompts for the adult to use when they're using that with the children. And the idea is that you would use those perhaps in circle time or PSHE lessons, but you could also use them on a one-to-one or small group as well. And there are primary and secondary versions available too. So if you know that you have children in school who have siblings with high levels of need, then it's worth being aware of the SIBS website and the resources that are available on there. So the featured service this time is Family Action Bradford, who you may have come across before in your role. If you haven't, then it's well worth looking at their website, because they offer lots of different types of support for families who are living with or who have experienced domestic abuse or sexual abuse and trauma, including traumatic bereavement. So this came up when we did the Mental Health Champions Plus training last half term, when we were looking at bereavement and grief as part of that session, and the idea that some children experience traumatic bereavement, which is where they just can't get past what's happened, and they become, because of the nature of the bereavement, so perhaps a suicide or an accident, or perhaps they've witnessed someone dying, this can be known as traumatic bereavement, where they kind of get very stuck in their grief, and they benefit then from some support to help them to kind of process that and to be able to move past it. So the Children's Trauma Therapy Service have specially trained workers who can work with children to help them through that experience. And again, the waiting list for that is generally much shorter than if you were waiting for, say, a CAMHS referral. So that's the Children's Trauma Therapy Service, but they cover all different types of trauma. There's also the Perinatal Support Service, which is more for mums who have either very young children or who are pregnant. And the Perinatal Support Service will offer like a listening service and peer support for mums who might be sort of quite isolated in that time, or who need some additional support around their mental health and well-being. So they will support women at any point from conception to when their baby is 2 years old. So the Perinatal Support Service is worth knowing about in case you have any parents who could benefit from that. And then the last of the services that Family Action provide then is the Survive and Thrive Children and Family Service, which again, it's to support families who are living with or who have experienced domestic violence, just domestic abuse, sexual abuse, and they work with other agencies to make sure that those children have what they need. And they again have specially trained workers who can work with the children, but also with the parents as well. And they do all kinds of work to support families on a very individual basis. So all of those services are really helpful to know about. If you want any more details about how to refer and which children might be appropriate, then you need to go to the Family Action Bradford website, and the details are on the newsletter. So that kind of brings you up to date in terms of what's going on in Bradford and also nationally at the moment. So we'll just spend a little bit of time thinking about Children's Mental Health Week then, which is taking place next half term at the beginning of February. And it's being run in conjunction with Place to Be, which is another website that's worth a look at another time. But Children's Mental Health Week, this time the theme is My Voice Matters. So all the activities are around helping children and parents as well and staff to think about how we talk about mental health, but also how we listen when people talk about mental health. So this is what you see when you go to the Children's Mental Health Week website then. Resources for schools, the resource packs, and also activities that you can use or send home for families to use. So it's organised into primary activities and secondary activities. You probably won't need to use the Welsh activities, but then there's also a section on Express Yourself, which is the theme for the day, which they recommend you run on the Friday of the week. The resources that are available for primary it's basically the same then for secondary, but just obviously tweaked for an older audience. The primary activities are organised into Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2 and across school. And once you've downloaded your pack, you've then got all of the background and guidance and resources that you need to be able to run sessions with classes, to do a whole school assembly, to kind of launch the week. And there's all kinds of things in there that you can print out, that you can use in those sessions. There's a couple of tip sheets. So there's one for children, but also schools, and then a separate one for families, which is giving children or adults guidance around looking after mental health and also how they share their worries and concerns with the people around them. So those tip sheets are quite helpful to use as a talking point, but also to share with the children and with families as well. There is a briefing for school staff, which would be an interesting focus for a staff meeting that week. So the focus of that is how well do we listen? So that could lead to some interesting discussions and activities, with your staff group around, what is in place in school, how well do we listen to children when they raise concerns, what mechanisms are there in our school, and so on. So that's worth a look. And there's also some guidance on hearing the voice of children with additional needs as well, which is nice. So that gives some ideas and pointers for how we can use different techniques and different ways of getting all children's views in school. So those are the primary resources. And then for secondary, a similar idea, you download your pack, so it's got all of your resources and some lesson plans and ideas for activities and things. And this is organised into kind of Key Stage 3 and then sort of beyond Key Stage 3. But there's obviously a lot more emphasis on the children using their own voice to make a stand, and There's some activities that look at their sort of online and offline behaviours as well, around when they talk around their own mental health, and how they deal with what they see online as well and read about. So secondary resources are similar in structure, but obviously differentiated for an older audience. So on Friday the 9th of January, which is at the end of that mental health week, they recommend that you have it's called an Express Yourself Day this year. So that would be kind of the fundraising day at the end of the week, where perhaps it's a non-uniform day, or you have a big talent show or a bake sale, whatever you wanted to do. But the idea is that children and staff raise lots of money to help Place to Be continue to do the work that they do. So there's a separate pack that you can download for that you have to register for. But in that pack you get all of the resources that you need. There's some bunting that you can print off. There's collection boxes that you can make up for any cash that gets donated. It's basically got all of the resources that you need to make that day a big success. So I'm hoping that that's just given you a little bit of a taste of what's available on the Children's Mental Health Week website. It's well worth a look, and hopefully it's something that you would want to support in your setting. Just to wrap up then, these are the diary dates for the Mental Health Champion Plus training sessions that are happening for this half term, and also the parent workshops that I mentioned before as well. So all of those things are happening in the first week of December. If you wanted to know what's happening for the rest of the year, you need to look at the Mental Health Core and Plus pages on Bradford Schools Online, which seem to move around a little bit from year to year, but at the moment they are on the left hand side of the Bradford Schools Online page. There is a mental health tab, and then when you click on there, there's a Healthy Minds tab, and when you click on there are pages for all of the different projects that we've got running in Bradford at the moment. And that is where we tend to put the most up-to-date information about the projects and training and dates and things. So keep your eye on those pages for updates. So thank you for listening to the webinar. I hope it's been useful, and I hope it's given you enough information to decide whether you want to celebrate Mental Health Awareness Week in February. In the meantime, if you want to ask us anything, or if you need to tell us that the champion is changing in your school, it's really helpful for us to keep that list up to date. So any questions or queries, just drop us a line at mentalhealthchampions@bradford.gov.uk and we will get back to you. Okay, so thank you and bye-bye for now.